Welcome to Common Financial System 9.2 Online Requisition Training, brought to you by the Purchasing Office and Training Support at CSU San Bernardino. Our goal is to introduce you to terms used in requisitioning, to explain the entire procurement cycle, and of course, how to enter a requisition into the system. In addition to this presentation, the full course includes a test and entry of several requisitions in a training environment. Requirements to complete the training are detailed in the Blackboard course. Terms that will be used frequently throughout the training include requisition, purchase order, they're different, description, unit of measure, category code, and location. A requisition is a request for goods or services that is electronically submitted to the universities, university enterprise corporations, or the philanthropic foundation's purchasing office, and is used as the basis for a purchase order. A requisition is a transaction between the requesting department and the purchasing office. It is not a supplier transaction. A purchase order is an official document issued to a supplier by the universities, UEC's, or philanthropic foundation's purchasing office after receipt of an approved requisition. Once the supplier accepts the purchase order, it represents a contract between the two parties. Please remember that a requisition is not a purchase order. A description is a field in the requisition line. Descriptions are used to communicate to suppliers what it is that we want them to send or what service we want them to perform. They allow receiving personnel to figure out what should be accepted from a supplier or what should be refused if an incorrect item is sent. They allow accounts payable to determine what should be paid for when an invoice is received, and they show auditors what we've purchased for the university. It is important that descriptions are clear and specific. Here are some guidelines for and examples of useful descriptions. When ordering from a catalog, use the supplier's catalog number plus a description of the item. In this first example, we have the catalog number 7110-100 and a specific description of the file cabinet we desire. Lateral file bin, 2 drawers, 42 inches wide, and the color, which is carbon. For printing, include a general description of the job and then specifications. In this example, we're having 50,000 copies of the spring 2014 edition of the Cal State magazine printed. Its description includes 28 text pages and cover, its finished size, the cover stock, the interior page stock, and some technical printing information and requirements. For services, include a description of the service to be performed and when the service should be completed. A department contact should also be listed in comments. In this example, we need the supplier to provide the materials and labor to replace some glass in an information booth by a specific date. What these examples have in common is that they are clear and specific. There is little doubt as to what we expect. Although it seems trivial, the unit of measure, or UOM, plays an important role throughout the procurement cycle. It is the base unit by which an item is stocked, priced, and ordered. It is one of the key elements within the purchasing system, as each line's UOM must match between the purchase order, the receipt, and the voucher before payment can be processed. While there are more than 100 UOMs available to choose from in the system, the most frequently used ones are each, or EA, which is the basic UOM for goods, 1000, represented as MX, which is used in printing, where pricing is typically based on a unit price per 1,000, case, and package, which are terms used to describe multiple items packed and sold as a single unit, service, or SVC, which is the basic UOM for services, and then quarter and month, which are used frequently for maintenance and other time-based agreements and are chosen based on how the supplier will bill. Make sure to match the quantity and UOM to the unit price basis to avoid calculation surprises. If you need 1,500 copies of a brochure and the printer price is at $55 per 1,000, your quantity, UOM, and unit price should be entered as 1.5 MX, that's 1,000, at $55 for a total of $82.50. Or you could enter it as 1,500 each at $0.055. That's $55 divided by 1,000 for a total of $82.50. If you enter $1,500 each at $55, your total will be $82,500, which is way too much. But this is what can happen when you mix unlike values, such as an each quantity, with a per thousand unit price. There are many UOMs that are non-specific in the sense that there is no set quantity in the definition of the term, but which do have meaning to the individual supplier. A case, for example, will carry a consistent number of individual items packed within a container, and the container or case is the unit of sale. But a case of paper, 20 reams, and a case of cleaning solvent, 12 cans, have different quantities of individual units. For this reason, we ask that you note at the end of the description how many are packed in that container. For example, 6 per case. This helps us to verify that we are receiving and paying for correct quantities. Some of the nonspecific UOMs are so nonspecific that they should be used only after all other options have been exhausted. Lot and other are the worst culprits. They cannot be quantified or verified and should be avoided whenever possible. Just keep in mind that if a supplier doesn't understand the UOM, he may not be able to provide the goods or service. If receiving can't identify how much of an item has been received, then the item cannot be properly received. And if accounts payable can't identify how much of an item or service has been provided or received, payment can't be processed. Moving on to category codes. Category code is a required entry field on every requisition line. Its purpose is to generally, not exactly, categorize what is being purchased and is used primarily for reporting. In this table, we show 9 of the most common categories. Note that the descriptions are general. A printer would fall into category 20400 because it's a computer peripheral. Journal or newspaper advertisements fall under 91571, advertising, newspaper, and publications. Please do your best to pick a category that comes reasonably close to what it is that you are requesting. If you review the drop-down list occasionally, you'll eventually find codes which apply to what you order frequently, and you can develop your own cheat sheet of codes. Last in our terms list is location code. This is an on-campus address used to advise receiving where to deliver items. Each requisitioner is assigned the code associated with their department, but you can change the code when you enter your requisition if a delivery needs to be directed elsewhere. Whatever value appears in the location field is where receiving delivers the item. Let's go over the requisition to purchase order to delivery process. This can also be referred to as the procurement cycle. The procurement cycle begins when the department identifies a need and then enters an approved requisition. Once the requisition is budget checked, it is available to the purchasing office. A manager reviews and assigns requisitions to buyers daily. Buyers may ask for additional information, documentation, or approvals, and where required or appropriate, may obtain quotes or bids prior to processing the requisition. Once all questions and requirements are addressed, the requisition is sourced to a purchase order which is then dispatched to the supplier. If the supplier accepts the purchase order, the goods or service are provided. Goods are shipped to receiving, which then delivers the items out to the location specified on the requisition. The supplier typically bills on shipment. Accounts payable enters the invoice into the system as a voucher, which is matched up against the purchase order and receipts. If matching is successful, payment is generated. With an understanding of the big picture, let's finally discuss the requisition itself. A requisition has 4 levels: a header, lines, schedules, and distributions. Each requisition has a header and at least 1 line. Each line has at least 1 schedule, and each schedule has at least 1 distribution. The header carries basic information: the business unit, the requisition ID, the requester's name, and approval status. Some parts, such as header comments, are not as visible as some other fields, but they can be reached by clicking appropriate links that appear on the page. Here we see the header comments page. Use comments to communicate with purchasing. Tell us if you are planning to send documentation, or if you can't find a supplier in the database, record the information you do have on the supplier here. It is a free-form alphanumeric field. There is a lot of space available within each comment, and you can add multiple comments by clicking the plus icon just above and to the right of the comment entry box. Lines appear at the bottom of the main requisition page. Line data includes quantity, unit of measure, description, unit price, and category code. In addition, there is line detail information, which can be reached by clicking the line detail icon immediately to the right of the line number. You won't normally need to come to this page when entering your requisition. However, you may come here a day or two after entering to find out which buyer has been assigned to process your request. Click the Buyer Information link to view the buyer's phone number. This page is also where supplier information is stored. Click OK to return to the main page. The schedule is tied to the line. The data in the schedule is associated with supplier delivery instructions. It can be used to direct suppliers to stagger delivery dates. However, in most cases, only one schedule per line is necessary. Note in the snapshot that the page shows that we are on line 1, schedule 1. Remember that each line has at least one schedule. Clicking the distribution icon, which is next to the due date field, will take us to the distribution. Each line has at least one schedule, and each schedule has at least one distribution. Here we are in line 1, schedule 1, distribution 1. The distribution is where chart field information and the on-campus delivery information is stored. If you ever get an error message that says, correct chart fields combination error on line 1, schedule 1, distribution 1, this is where you need to navigate to review and correct the problem. Click OK to return to the schedule, and then on the schedule, choose Return to Main Page. Here we illustrate a 3-line requisition, with each line being progressively more complicated. First is the header, then line 1, which represents the typical line entered. It has a single schedule and a single distribution. Line 2 is slightly more complicated. It has a single schedule and 2 distributions, which means that it has been charged to 2 different chart field strings, or delivery will be made to 2 different campus locations. Finally, line 3 is the most complicated. It has 2 schedules, which means that the supplier is being asked to make 2 separate deliveries. The first schedule has a single distribution, single delivery location, and our single chart field string. The second schedule has 2 distributions, 2 delivery locations, and/or 2 chart field strings. Most lines resemble the first line of this example. However, please be aware that there are more options available when needed. We've finished with the technical information and now move to things that fall under the idea of good to know, which includes requisition defaults, how to deal with sales tax and freight, and requester approval. To make entering your requisition as painless as possible, we encourage you to begin your data entry on the Requisition Defaults page. The information entered here carries forward into all of the requisition lines so that you don't have to navigate to each line's schedule and distribution. Sales tax is calculated at the purchase order level and should not be entered on the requisition. It should not be included in the unit price nor added as a separate requisition line. If you know what a supplier will charge for shipping, please enter that information as a comment on the requisition so that the buyer can include it on the purchase order. Do not add a charge line to the requisition, and if you don't know what the shipping charge will be, please don't worry about it. Purchase orders are set up to allow shipping to be added to the invoice by the supplier. Each requester will need to complete and submit a Requisition Approval Authorization form to the University Purchasing Office. This document is in addition to the required Computerized Information Access Request form. Without the Rec Approval Authorization, you won't be able to approve or budget check your requisition, and the Purchasing Office won't be able to process the requisition through to a purchase order. Next up, we will take you through a demonstration of requisition entry, and then you will log on to a training database where you will enter several practice requisitions which will be reviewed and verified before your training is certified as complete. Don't forget to take the test in the Blackboard course as well. I will demonstrate how to log in and enter a requisition. Let's begin by logging into csyou.calstate.edu csu.edu. Activate Select a Campus drop-down menu. Select San Bernardino and then the Login button. The campus authentication page appears requiring your MyCoyote ID and password. In the CSYOU portal, we will select Tools and Services. Next, under Financial Tools, we will select Common Financial System, CFS. The CFS page displays. Select the CFS login hyperlink on the left side of the page. Please note that for training purposes only, when you log into the system to do your training exercises later, you will use the CFS non-production link. The PeopleSoft main menu will appear. From the main menu, select the purchasing link. Next, select Requisitions, and then select the Add Update Requisition link. The first field is Business Unit. For a campus stateside requisition, use SBCMP. For a University Enterprise Corporation requisition, use SBFDN. For the Philanthropic Foundation, use SBPHL. Make sure that you have assigned the correct business unit before proceeding. The next field is Requisition ID. Always, always, always leave it as Next. Do not change it, do not tab into the field, just leave it as Next. Click Add button. If this message about a default comment being added comes up, click OK. This is the main requisition page. It shows the requisition ID, which is still at Next, the requester's ID and name, the approval and budget check statuses, and it is where you will enter detail line information later. Click the Requisition Defaults hyperlink to start data entry. The Requisition Defaults page is used to populate other pages of the requisition. Information entered here is pulled into line, schedule, and distribution fields by the system. The default information must be entered here before beginning entry of the lines. Change the Defaults option to Override. Failure to do so may affect the account charged. Leave the buyer field blank. This will be assigned by Purchasing or Auxiliary Business Services. Try to find the supplier you'd like to purchase from by clicking the Supplier Lookup hyperlink. The supplier search page allows searches by name, city, state, and zip postal code. Try not to use the short name field as data in it can be oddly formatted. Type the first 4 or 5 letters of the supplier's name you are seeking. In this demonstration, we're looking for Chronicle for Higher Education, so I'll enter the letters CHRON. The fewer number of characters you enter, the more matches there will be. The field is not case sensitive. Click Search. It takes a little time to process the request. The request returned 3 records. The first row is the supplier we want to select. Select the box next to Supplier ID 107. Notice that the supplier detail and address hyperlinks near the bottom of the page have activated. If you were sure this was the supplier you wanted, you could now click the OK button. However, I'd like to verify the address, so I'll select the address hyperlink. Review the information, then click OK to return to the search page. Verify that the supplier you want to use is checked, and then click OK. If you are not able to find your preferred supplier, you would click Cancel and provide the supplier information through header comments a little later in the process. Select the OK button now. Note that the supplier ID and supplier location fields have now populated on the Requisition Defaults page. Next, assign the category code. It is a required field on the requisition, and there is a list of the most commonly used codes in the Requisition Training Guide. You can use the lookup icon to choose data for this field. However, for this example, we will type the advertisement code in ourselves, 91571. Tab or click over to the Unit of Measure UOM field. If all the different items you plan to order through this requisition are similar, determine what the most common UOM will be. If you know the abbreviation, you may key it in here, or you can search for the one you need by clicking on the magnifying glass icon next to the field. Placing an advertisement is a service, so we'll enter the UOM for service, which is SVC. Enter a due date if you need the items by a certain date, otherwise you may leave the field blank and the system will assign one. Move down to the bottom of the page to enter chart fields and campus delivery location information. In the SB CMP Business Unit, Account, Fund, Dept ID, and Program are required fields with class and project available when necessary. In the SB FDN and SB PHL business units, Account, Fund, Dept ID, and Project fields are required. The next few slides will demonstrate the data entry for the distribution fields. Move down to the bottom of the page to enter chart field and on-campus delivery location information. To repeat, in the SB CMP Business Unit, Account, Fund, Dept ID, and Program are required fields with class and project available when necessary. The SB FDN and SB PHL business units require Account, Fund, Dept ID, and Project. Key in the data, tab, or use your mouse to move to each field. Scroll all the way to the right to verify that the on-campus delivery location is correct. This is the location that receiving delivers items to. If necessary, change it. Please make sure that you choose a location that is staffed during normal campus business hours. Scroll back to the left side of the page, review your entries, click OK when ready. You are returned to the Maintain Requisitions page. Now we can begin entering line information at the bottom of the page. Click into the Description field for line 1. Enter a clear description of the item or service to be purchased. For goods, include part and/or model numbers in addition to the description. For services, include a description of the service, when the service should be performed, and where it will be performed. Although not much text displays, this field is quite large. Don't include notes to purchasing or other internal notes information here. Use header comments later for this purpose. The description we enter here is Display Ad for Water Environmental Chemist, Faculty Position, Run Date November 20th, 2014. Tab or use the mouse to enter data into the quantity field. Enter the desired quantity, 1 in this instance, then tab or click into the UOM field. If the UOM you entered on the requisition default page applies to this line, you can leave the UOM field blank and it will populate when the page is refreshed or saved, or you may key in or choose a different UOM. Tab or click into the category field. If the category you entered on the requisition defaults page applies to this line, you can leave the field blank and it will populate when the page is refreshed or saved, or you can key in or choose a different category code. We'll leave the field blank to populate with the default that we entered. Tab or click into the price field. Enter the unit price for the item, which is 364 point. To add additional lines, click the plus icon at the end of the line. Click the Add Comments hyperlink. It's located next to the Requisition Defaults page link. If you had information to pass on to purchasing, such as special handling instructions, shipping cost, remember don't add a line for shipping, or special justifications, you would enter it here in header comments. Or if you couldn't find the supplier you had in mind when you did the vendor search, you would enter what information you did have here, and preferably it would include the vendor name, address, phone, and fax numbers. You would need to click OK to save the comment and return to the main page. Type Add Copy to be forwarded to purchasing. Then click OK. Note that the UOM and category fields on the first line have populated with the values you entered in requisition defaults. Move to the bottom of the page, select Save. Note that a requisition ID has been assigned and that the status is open and budget status is not checked. These need to be approved and valid respectively. Click the green check mark next to the word Open. Status is now approved. Click the budget checking icon next to the Not Checked status. It looks like a piece of green bar paper with a magnifying glass on top. It may take a while to finish processing and the status to update. Be patient. Do not click the icon more than once. Budget status is now valid. The requisition is ready for the purchasing office to work. Scroll to the bottom of the page to initiate the print requisition copy process. Click the View Printable Version link. This message asking if you wish to save the current document may or may not come up. If it does, choose Yes. Select the Yes button now. You will receive a message saying that you don't have the required permission. This information is wrong, it's annoying, but it's expected. Click OK. Select the main menu and navigate to Reporting Tools, Report Manager. Select the Administration tab at the top of the page. Select the Requisition Print SQR. It may take some time for the report to finish processing. Be patient and click the Refresh button until the link is active. Click the Requisition Print SQR hyperlink. Please note that in order for the hyperlink to work, pop-ups need to be enabled in your web browser. Next, we'll review how to find an existing requisition. To search for a requisition you entered and saved previously, from Main Menu, navigate to Purchasing, then Requisitions, and then select Add Update Requisitions. Select the Find an Existing Value tab to begin the search process. You can use any of the fields displayed to narrow your search. Business Unit is the only required field. To find active requisitions under your user ID, go to the Requester field and key in the campus code 63 plus the 9-digit user ID you are assigned for the training. For this demonstration, we are using 639999999050. From the list that appears under Search Results, select the rec number you want to review. In this instance, we'll choose the most recent, which is at the top of the list. The Maintain Requisitions page opens. Next, we'll review how to begin entry of an additional requisition from an existing requisition. If you are entering more than one requisition in a sitting, you can add a new requisition from your current one without having to return to the main menu. Make sure that you've completed and saved your current requisition, and then click the Add button at the bottom right of the main requisition page. You will be taken automatically to the Add a New Value page, and you may begin your new requisition. To return to the Startup page with the main menu, select the Home link at the top of the page. To end the session, choose the Sign Out link, also at the top of the page. Next up, log into the training database to enter your training exercises, which will be reviewed and verified before your training is certified as complete. Also, don't forget to take the test in the Blackboard course.